Murmurs fill a grand hall, confirming Lady Livy's return to the ducal house. The gossips note Lady Teresa's worried expression, speculating she is upset because her half-sister, once thought dead, has returned, jeopardizing her position as the Squire family heir. Two men approach a woman in a black veil, calling out to her. One man mockingly addresses her as Miss Therese, asking if she is thrilled her long-lost little sister is back. From behind the veil, Lady Therese affirms that she is. The man is taken aback, questioning what she just said. Therese removes her veil, looking directly at him and slowly enunciating that she is thrilled her sister has returned. The man, a viscount, stammers that her face suggests otherwise, but Therese cuts him off, asking if he disapproves of her sister's return and threatening to inform her father. The viscount panics, insisting that wasn't his meaning and crying out, Lady Therese. He begs for mercy, admitting he misspoke. A system message appears. Constellation, Sitterpath, has sponsored 100 coins. More system messages and logos appear, including one for Sitterpath. The notifications continue, with Romancepath cheering wildly and Plot Twist Maniac clapping. Surrounded by falling coins, Therese thinks about what the constellations call her. She holds a coin, a slight smile on her face. The scene shifts to a description of a reverse harem game. The game's premise is revealed. An ordinary girl discovers she is a duke's daughter. She is welcomed back to the ducal estate by a loving family who offers her everything. There, she encounters several handsome men, including the commoner-born vice president, Damian West. Another potential suitor is Valhalla's genius professor, Ilya Bernstein. A third is Clyde Willow, the heir of a rival noble family. The fourth is the emperor himself, Hugues Rodrigo. But the protagonist's life is threatened by a jealous half-sister. The half-sister, Therese, is shown screaming as she raises a dagger. The Duke banishes Therese, declaring he can no longer tolerate her actions. Therese screams for her father as she is dragged away. The game's objective is to seize a happy ending, showered with love. The happy ending screen shows the protagonist with the Emperor. A game developer sighs that the villain dies way too fast again. She reflects on The Game of Gods, the reverse harem game she's been developing for months, noting its quality. She picks up an energy drink, lamenting that the villains are dealt with too easily, which removes all tension. She opens the character settings, wondering why they are so weak. She questions if she made the characters too simple. She reviews the character file for Therese Squire, whose personality traits include high jealousy, violence when thwarted, elitism, and authoritarianism. The developer muses that she dumped all the worst traits on Therese, making her a flat character. She considers adding a scene where the Duke openly despises Therese. But she pauses, thinking she can't let the villain share in the family's love. She wonders if, for one person to be loved, another must be deprived of it. She types at her keyboard. She thinks this feeling might stem from her own lack of family love. She admits that, honestly, she relates to Therese. She dismisses the thoughts as pointless, blaming fatigue. Deciding to do one final check before heading home, she runs the program. She watches the game's opening sequence, showing silhouettes of the male leads. She leans on her hand, finding the opening getting old. Suddenly, she notices something is off. Therese is now in the opening. A strange graphic swirls on screen. The developer also realizes there are more male leads than before and starts to feel dizzy. Her vision blurs as a loading message appears. The loading bar continues over an image of a woman, Therese, collapsed on the floor. A man, Duke Raoul, orders someone to wake her. Water is splashed on the woman's face. She sputters awake, coughing and asking what's happening. Duke Raoul asks if she is awake now. A loading complete message appears as the woman recognizes Duke Raoul. She looks up, water dripping from her face. She takes in the unfamiliar, movie-like room and the familiar-faced foreigner. Looking in a mirror, she sees the face of Therese staring back. She laughs in disbelief, finding the situation ridiculous. She struggles to process what is happening. A system window appears, prompting her to select a channel name to start broadcasting. The window recommends the name, Streamer, Lady Villainous. She stares in shock at the system window. She questions the streamer and Lady Villainous text and wonders about the voice she's hearing as the broadcast starts. Constellations are entering the stream, messages appear. She thinks to herself that in The Game of Gods, the game she was developing, there was no streaming function. Her eyes widen in realization. As more and more constellations are entering, notifications flood her vision. She understands this feels like a God's game. Duke Raoul shouts, "Therese." He angrily berates her for drowning herself in alcohol over a broken engagement and now ignoring him, her father, reminding her the engagement was broken because of her. He reveals the young earl she treated like a slave pleaded for the engagement to end, which was deeply humiliating. A man in a red suit appears in a glitchy, throne-like vision, stating this is not a dream. He continues that now that she seems to understand the situation, they can have a proper conversation. He introduces himself as the channel administrator. He smiles at her. As system dings sound, she wonders who he is. The administrator tells her not to be nervous, as she is the one who made this world. He explains it should be easy for her to unlock the true ending of the quest, play God's Delight on hard mode and unlock the true ending. She processes this, realizing she's in her own game, but thinks she doesn't have to do what he says. The administrator calmly agrees that is an option. He then mentions she'd be giving up the Wish coupon, available in the store, for 1 billion coins, an item that grants any wish. He elaborates that the coupon could be used for mundane things, like killing someone or even bringing them back to life. She clenches her fist, dismissing his words and demanding to be returned to her original world. The administrator informs her that returning also requires the Wish coupon, which is only possible after finishing the quest. The scene flashes back to Duke Raoul asking about Therese's condition. He notes she's never fainted before. He wonders aloud if the broken engagement was really that shocking. He recalls Therese's past anger, where she confronted him for calling off the engagement at the Count's request. She had yelled at him for not asking her opinion and for giving the Count monetary compensation, ruining her reputation. In the present, the Duke reflects that he was immature, even though the Count's son begged for it because Therese treated him poorly. He shouldn't have agreed without her consent. He calls for Donovan. He gives an order for what to do when Teresa awakens. Back with the administrator, he explains that if she ends the broadcast, she will become a permanent resident of this world. To return, she must earn 1 billion coins for the coupon before the broadcast ends. She asks why this is happening to her, and he replies that God's Delight is a game full of cliches. He points out that in her game, only the main character is loved by everyone. He continues, saying this reflects what she wants, and suggests that having the creator enter her own game as the villainess. She glares, thinking, "This bastard." A blurry image of the protagonist appears as the administrator's voiceover states the developer filled God's Delight with everything she ever wished for. The female lead, Libby, is the embodiment of that idea, while Therese is just a villainess created to make Libby shine more. The administrator continues, stating this game has another important setup. He explains that in this world, the one who can be loved is the protagonist. He then adds that he almost forgot to tell her something important. He warns that if Therese dies, she won't just die, she will be sent to a special hell created just for her. He clarifies that her personal hell would be something specific to her. He shows her a vision of her past, hearing her mother's voice dismissing her birthday and berating her for failing to make her stepfather love her. The developer, as Therese, looks horrified by this memory. The administrator steps closer, pleased to see an expression he truly loves. He lays out her options: unlock the true ending and end the broadcast, or fail and be sent to that hell. He lifts her chin, stating it's really that simple. He adds that he would be quite disappointed if she couldn't even manage this task. He describes his usual genres, which involve disasters, war, betrayal, and revenge. He claims to be known for satisfying the constellations with bloodier content and that she is the first streamer he's chosen for a romance story. He brushes her hair, telling her to never forget that he is sincerely rooting for her to win. He then bids her farewell and vanishes. The developer, as Therese, springs up in bed, a system message noting the constellations are growing bored of the long introduction. A maid stammers that she is awake and explains she changed her into a nightgown out of worry. Therese silently wonders how many constellations are watching. She glares, accepting that she must participate in the stream to leave this world. The maid, misinterpreting the glare, apologizes and offers to bring an alcoholic beverage, while the quest objective appears again. Therese stops the maid, realizing the quest only said, true ending, not necessarily one with a love interest, and asks for her father. The maid, surprised, says the Duke is in his office. Therese immediately gets out of bed and walks out, ignoring the maid's protest about her nightgown. A system message appears. Romanceaholic, donates 100 coins and asks when the male love interest will appear. Therese thinks to herself that they're already focused on the male leads. She bursts through the door, noting to herself that this is hard mode, not easy mode. As she walks, she reflects that hard mode is the highest difficulty, meaning if she dies, it's game over. She continues down the stairs, acknowledging she can't win over any male leads as the villainous Therese. She bursts open another set of doors, knowing there is another way. She confronts her father in his office. She announces that she must speak with him urgently. The Duke is shocked to see her in her nightgown and dismisses his attendant, Donovan. He sighs, rubbing his head and complaining that he can never have a peaceful day with her, bracing himself for her next unreasonable demand. Therese states that she saw Libby recently, causing the Duke to flinch. She continues, saying Libby looked exactly like the portrait of her stepmother in her younger days, and the Duke demands to know what she just said. She elaborates, her younger half-sister, Libby, who went missing at age 2, is still alive. She stands before the Duke and states plainly, "I know where Libby is." A system message from Romanceaholic appears, trying to stop her and asking why she'd shoot herself in the foot, as Libby's return will get her tossed out. Therese thinks to herself that, of course, the constellations would think that. She ignores them and tells her father she will reveal where she saw Libby. She names Valhalla, the School of Magic, the main setting of God's Delight. This location, she thinks, is also the perfect excuse to escape the Duke's household. The constellations react with excitement, with Romanceaholic asking if the male leads will finally show up and Fascicanour looking forward to seeing her in a school uniform. Therese makes a wager with her father. If she is wrong about seeing Libby, he can strip her of all authority in the Squire household. She knows this is a huge gamble, stripping the lady of her power. But she is confident that by staking this much, he will not ignore her claim. The Duke frowns, accusing her of coming to him and using his grief against him. He turns away, stating he will verify her words. If she is lying, she must prepare herself. But if she is telling the truth, he will allow her to move into the dormitory. A few days later, a carriage arrives at a grand estate. A servant announces their arrival. A young blonde woman in a uniform peeks out from a doorway. The Duke and his wife stand before a crowd of servants, welcoming Lady Libby to the Squire household. The woman, Libby, covers her mouth in shock, standing next to the Duke. She is formally introduced as Lady Libby. The Duchess cries out, "Libby," and embraces her, while Libby tentatively says, "Mother." The servants whisper among themselves, confirming it truly is Lady Libby and speculating that the family heir will now change, as Libby is the current Duchess's real daughter. The Duchess weeps with joy, thanking God for her daughter's return. The Duke addresses the assembled crowd, thanking them for sharing in their joy. A hand raises a champagne glass. The Duke, with his arm around Libby, announces that his beloved daughter has returned home at last. He invites everyone to eat and drink to their heart's content. Guests crowd around Libby, telling her she is beautiful and congratulating her on her return. Meanwhile, two guests gossip, asking if the others saw how Lady Therese treated her uncle earlier. They murmur that Therese must be on edge after her stepsister's return, noting how she and Lady Libby are complete opposites and calling Therese a stuck-up lady. Therese, observing from a distance, thinks that this is all just typical villainous tropes, recalling her earlier confrontation with the Viscount. System messages pop up, with Catharsishalik, laughing and typing that Therese is definitely AT. Another donation from Overexplainer explains that streams from Earth are popular, so her situation is common knowledge. Therese wonders if she's really on another planet. She muses that her channel has many viewers and donations for being new, prompting a donation explaining it's because the famous manager, Oswald, is managing it. The constellations ask what she's going to do now, offering more donations for a hint and asking if the male leads will show up. Therese thinks to herself that she can't answer them quickly and won't be sharing the most important parts of her plan. Her true plan, she decides, is not to go after any of the male leads, despite the constellation's expectations. Her real goal is the hidden ending she created, Paradise, a secret ending for die-hard fans. This ending is very difficult to achieve, requiring the player to avoid all bad ending triggers, but it doesn't require romancing any love interests. A donation from Soapoppredict arrives, taunting her and asking if she's super jealous right now. Therese dryly comments that the name Soap Opera Addict suits the constellation, while Catharsishalik messages Bjorn. Therese thinks to herself that there is no reason for her to be jealous. After all, she poured everything she ever wanted into the protagonist, Libby, when she created her. A voice interrupts her thoughts, asking what she is muttering to herself. She turns to see a young boy. He glares at her, accusingly asking if she is scheming something. He stands angrily in the doorway. Therese recognizes him as Therese's stepbrother, Joseph Squire, the youngest son of the current Duchess. A title card identifies him as Joseph Squire, surrounded by magical energy. Therese recalls he is a 13-year-old magic genius, wondering why he is trying to pick a fight with her. He is depicted growling at her like an angry animal. He shouts, "You!" He accuses her, stating he heard her fighting with their uncle earlier and demands she drop the act, claiming he knows she hates Libby. Therese calmly suggests he should speak more nicely to his sister, but he retorts, "Sister? As if I'd think of you as one." She leans in close to his face. He flinches, surprised, as Therese thinks that to Joseph, Therese is just a terrible stepsister who torments his mother. She reflects that this kind of hostility isn't new to her. She recalls her own step-siblings yelling at her, demanding to know if she thought their dad would accept her and telling her to go back to her old house. She smirks, thinking that Joseph is at least cuter than they were. Joseph, seeing her laugh, sputters, "Did you just laugh at me?" Therese straightens up and pats his head, musing that he really is like Therese's younger brother. She quickly corrects herself, saying aloud, "Oh, I mean you're just like me." Joseph explodes in anger, shouting, "WWE," and denying they are anything alike. Therese simply turns and walks away from the flustered boy. A woman's voice interrupts, asking why he is causing a ruckus while they have guests. Therese recognizes Duchess Roseanne, who notes that Joseph is with Therese. The Duchess calls out to her son, who replies, "Mother," and tells Joseph to return to his place. The Duchess looks at her son, remarking that he is still so childish. Duchess Roseanne approaches Therese, asking if Joseph was bothering her and offering an apology. Therese replies that there is no need for her stepmother to apologize. Roseanne smiles, touching her own cheek, and remarks that Therese seemed angry. She then asks if something upset Therese, voicing a faint hope that it isn't related to Libby's return. Therese looks down, her expression hardening. She inwardly reflects that she put a lot of effort into designing Roseanne's character. On the surface, the Duchess appears warm and considerate. But beneath that facade, she is ruthless and willing to get her hands dirty for her own daughter's sake. Roseanne presses, asking Therese to be honest about her feelings toward Libby, and Therese knows that if she were perceived as a threat, Roseanne would not hesitate to kill her. A small smile plays on Therese's lips. She reassures Roseanne not to worry, announcing that she will be leaving the household soon. Roseanne flinches in surprise as Therese declares, "You've won, stepmother," confirming she will no longer be the family heir, just as Roseanne always wished. Therese elaborates that she will get a dorm room at Valhalla and will not return until after graduation, also promising to have the heir's room cleared out. Roseanne is left staring in stunned silence. A few days pass, and the mansion is filled with the sounds of banging and activity. Therese, now in a practical blouse and skirt, confronts a group of servants, asking what they are doing. She criticizes their slow pace, questioning how they expect to get Libby's room ready. She begins directing the servants, ordering furniture to be moved. A servant nervously approaches, informing her that the new carpet she ordered has arrived. Therese confirms that it's made of the best wool, which the servant quickly affirms. She instructs him to lay it in Libby's room, then muses aloud that all this work since morning has made her hungry. A constellation immediately donates 100 coins, begging her to eat and offering 500 more if she does. Therese considers this, deciding that even if her main goal is the hidden ending, collecting coins is a good insurance policy. She calls out to a nearby maid, who jumps in surprise. Therese, remembering the extra's name, asks Penny to fetch her some snacks. Penny and another maid stare at her, completely stunned. Therese silently wonders why they are reacting so strangely. She informs Penny she will be in the study and to bring the snacks there, and the maid nervously stammers her assent. As Therese walks away, she hears the servants whispering and muses if this is the typical life of a villainess. Alone in the study, she notes the good progress on Libby's room and decides it's a good moment to check Therese's stats. She calls out, "Stat window," and a blue screen begins to materialize in front of her. The window displays, Therese Esquire, age, 21, magic rating, B, intelligence, C+, and magic power. She confirms the stats are exactly as she originally designed them. She reflects that these stats, apart from her age, will remain fixed until she reaches an ending, just as a constellation message pops up asking what she's thinking about. She leans back in her chair, telling the stream she's reviewing Teresa's character profile. As she holds out her hand, a small spark of magic ignites. She thinks about how Teresa's massive magic power was designed to compensate for her other shortcomings as she chants a simple spell. In essence, the character is a powerful but ignorant magician. She marvels, excited to actually see the magic she only ever programmed. A system message informs her the constellations are smiling at her honest reaction, calling it a cliché response from a streamer from a non-magical world. Therese clears her throat, realizing she can indeed use magic instinctively. The constellation Overexplainer sends a message, noting it would be odd if she couldn't use magic given her high power level. Another constellation message appears, asking what she meant before. Therese explains to her audience that in God's delight, one must know a magic's formula to cast it. While looking at a grimoire, she elaborates that higher-level magic requires more complex formulas, which she had based on mathematical formulas from her world. She is astonished to see that the grimoires have perfected the logic, exclaiming that this is how to solve the Millennium problems. A donation from telling her to speak English, you nerd. Therese continues her explanation, stating that high intelligence is crucial for using magic effectively. To use high-level magic, one must first be able to understand the high-level formulas. She reflects that because Teresa's intelligence stat is low and she hated books, she never showed much potential despite her innate talent. Facepalms in a message, asking her to get to the point, and Therese admits she was being wordy. She concludes that she needs to raise her intelligence stat to at least B+, but she's interrupted by a knock at the door. Penny enters carrying a tray, announcing she has brought the food. Therese thanks her and gestures vaguely for her to put it down, but Penny looks confused, asking, where? The maid immediately begins to apologize, saying she tends to be clueless. Therese, genuinely surprised, asks Penny what she means. She then simply says, "Thank you, Penny." The maid's eyes fill with tears as she realizes she did hear Therese use her name correctly earlier. Just then, the housekeeper, Miranda, appears in the doorway and greets Lady Teresa. Therese recognizes her, wondering why the housekeeper has suddenly come to find her. Miranda begins by saying she is glad to know Therese is content. She then adds that she is, however, surprised that Therese remembered a servant's name. Miranda states that since Therese has shown an interest in Penny, she will be sure to teach her well. Another maid in the hall whispers to a colleague how jealous she is. The other maid explains to the new girl that Lady Therese is infamous for not recognizing anyone's face, especially servants, even if they've worked there for 10 years. In fact, there are only 2 people whose names Therese ever bothered to remember. Those 2 are Miranda, the housekeeper, and Donovan, the butler. Therese sighs, realizing the constellations probably think she's a genius for singling out Penny, when in truth, her low intelligence stat was the real reason she only remembered 2 people. A donation from praises her for looking at the big picture and planning to take control, which Therese mentally denies, asking Miranda if that was all. Miranda replies that no, there was another reason she came. She delivers a message from the Duke. He has requested that Therese join everyone for a meal in the dining room. This piques Therese's suspicion. He usually doesn't care if she's present. A thought suddenly strikes her. Could he have remembered? She glances at the date, February 2nd. She flashes back to her stat window. She recalls the stat window updating her age from 21 to 22. It's her birthday. Later, as she enters the dining room, the Duke tells her to sit down. Therese remains silent, her expression guarded. She asks her father why he has suddenly summoned her. As he replies that they have a lot to celebrate, she thinks to herself that the Duke Raoul she created would never remember Teresa's birthday. She allows herself a brief moment of hope. Maybe. But the Duke, standing proudly next to Libby, joyfully announces that Libby's paternity test results have come back. Teresa's expression shudders. She thinks to herself that she was a fool to expect anything else. She lets out an internal sigh. She reminds herself that this is the world she created. As the family fawns over Libby, Therese reflects that this is a family where everyone is happy except for her. Joseph excitedly suggests Libby join him at Valhalla, and Therese feels the familiar, natural sense of disregard and exclusion. The Duke then asks Libby what she wants as an admission present, cementing that Teresa's birthday is completely forgotten. The constellation's messages reflect their boredom. So Apopredict is disappointed, Catharsisholic leaves the room, and Romanceaholic just asks when a male lead will finally appear. Teresa decides to act, interrupting to ask her father if she might also have a present. She thinks that although she would prefer not to, she has to do something now. The room falls silent as she explains there is something she wishes to buy. She states that it is expensive and requests an allowance, but her father cuts her off with a clatter. He pauses, his fork halfway to his mouth. He tells her that today is a day of celebration. He continues, stating he doesn't want to get angry at her. Teresa sets her own fork down, asking when she should speak with him. She presses him, asking if he even has the time to listen to what she has to say. A brief, violent flashback shows Teresa being slammed to the floor. The Duke roars, "Teresa!" as Libby flinches beside him. The Duke continues yelling, asking how she can be selfish when her younger sister just returned home. He berates her for asking for an allowance and making a fuss over something so trivial. Teresa curses inwardly as constellations flood the chat. Catharsisholic, urging her to mention her birthday, and So Apopredict, suggesting she slap him with a stake. Romanceaholic chimes in, predicting a male lead will appear to save her. The system messages continue to pop up. Teresa flashes back to another painful memory, her mother scolding her for thinking her birthday was more important than her sister's competition. She thinks to herself that she never would have designed the world this way if she had known she would take over Teresa's life. She sighs, frustrated that she's stuck doing these quests as Teresa. She speaks to her father, admitting she was wrong to think he wouldn't remember and that she hadn't wanted to trouble him. She then states clearly, "Today is my birthday, father." The Duke pauses, his expression unreadable. He coldly asks how she can blame him for forgetting things like her birthday, at her age, causing her to grit her teeth. He softens slightly, admitting his words may have been harsh. Teresa replies that she guesses she shouldn't have brought it up. She puts down her utensils and asks to be excused. Standing up, she says his permission to leave will suffice as her birthday present. The Duke watches her. As she walks away, she thinks she can't resent him, as she's the one who created this scenario. She assumes Duke Raoul must be quite angry now. He suddenly speaks, saying he won't give her that as a gift. Teresa stops, stunned, and asks, "Pardon?" He tells her she may leave the table if she's tired. He then adds he will give her a blank check later, to spend as much as she likes. Teresa is shocked by the words, "a blank check." She starts to protest, saying there's no need for that, but he cuts her off. He asks if she, a lady of the Squire household, thinks a single blank check is too much, and she inwardly admits, "Of course I do." She wonders if he's being serious, picturing a crest and falling gems. She knows the family is rich, but a blank check for Teresa is unbelievable. She thinks she would understand if he gave one to Libby, but not to her. She remains silent, processing the offer. The Duke tells her she may refuse it if she doesn't want it. Teresa makes her decision, saying, "No, and I will accept it," then thanks her father before leaving the dining room. As she walks away, she wonders if he's only being nice because Libby is there. She decides that if that's the case, there's no reason to refuse the money. She pauses at the door and looks back. She says, "Congratulations on returning home." Libby, who looks up, sparkling. Teresa holds her gaze for a moment. She then turns and excuses herself. She wishes them a nice meal together as a family. She stands alone outside the large dining room doors. Donations pour in. Catharsisholic celebrates the blank check win, and Romanceaholic asks if she's going to meet a male lead now. Another constellation, SBD, donates, announcing they are settling in for the ride. A constellation message notes the flood of donations and wonders if she'll get a channel upgrade. A large system notification appears, announcing her channel has leveled up from bronze to silver. New constellations begin to enter the stream, including Tavane, Hazy, and Romantasy understood. The messages continue, one calling it a satisfying stream and another asking when her family will start to love her. As she walks away from the door, more messages appear, one noting they joined due to a notification about Oswald streamers, and another encouraging her to keep up the good work. She leans her hand against the wall. She lets out a weary, ugh. She reflects on her past life, where she longed for affection from others. A tear forms as she thinks, just as I expected. The administrator's face appears in a glitchy overlay, finishing her thought. From the streamer I have such high hopes for. He suddenly appears behind her, congratulating her on leveling up her channel. He begins to explain that there are 5 different channel levels. An image of her face is reflected in a teacup. He lists them. First is bronze, next is silver, and then gold. The 4th level is platinum, and the highest is diamond. Therese realizes time has stopped around them and listens as he explains that each level up increases the donation limit tenfold. She calculates that if bronze was 100 coins, silver will be 1,000. She quickly realizes that even at the diamond level, the limit would be 1 million coins, making the 10 billion needed for the wish coupon seem impossible. The administrator confirms her unspoken question, stating that, of course they have, meaning other streamers have succeeded. He taps his cane. He begins walking with her through the frozen time hallway. Therese looks at him, startled. He smiles, saying that the streamers he has chosen. Therese grits her teeth, waiting for him to finish. He continues walking. He glances at her. You will be able to as well. He leads her back to the study, asking if she enjoys studying magic and revealing he brought the advanced grimoires from another dimension. He taps one of the books, noting that it seemed like she liked them. She pulls her arm away, telling him to let go, and he apologizes, feigning forgetfulness. He claims he only did it because she seemed to be in poor condition. She crosses her arms, brushing him off and saying she just has some indigestion. She inwardly notes that her magic didn't work on him at all. She realizes this means she has no way to defy him. He asks if she's adjusted to the new world, noting her enthusiasm, and she retorts that she just needs 1 billion coins. She then asks why he really came to see her. She presses him, stating there must be a reason he went so far as to stop time. He replies that there's no special reason. She asks, what? And he explains it's his duty as her manager to check in on her. He taps the desk and adds, normally my streamers like it when I visit. His eye is shown in extreme close-up as he says, oh. He leans in closer, asking, do you perhaps not wish to become close? Therese finds herself unable to speak, despite knowing she must answer. Her heart pounds in her chest. She is terrified. She knows that if he wished it, he could make her disappear in a heartbeat. It would be as easy as when she herself deleted unnecessary data. The administrator smiles slightly. He leans back, holding his cane. He remarks, I guess you really don't want to get close to me. He begins to say he can understand why, but she interrupts him, admitting, I'm afraid of you. She looks at him directly, stating she doesn't know if she can trust him, and that's all. He bursts out laughing. He reaches out and touches her cheek, telling her she's still unaware of her own position. He smiles, explaining their relationship isn't one of trust or interdependence. He addresses her by her real name, Miss G. He then says that from now on he'll call her Teresa, to help her remember where she stands. He glances at a clock, noting the ads have been running for too long, and says he'd better be going. The administrator vanishes in a swirl of light. As time resumes, Penny, the maid, flinches. The teacup she was holding tumbles from her hands, spilling tea. It shatters on the floor, and Penny cries out in panic, apologizing for breaking it. The administrator's parting words echo in Teresa's mind, don't forget your role. His gloved hand had been close to her face. He had leaned in close, as if for a kiss, and whispered, well then. Therese had instinctively recoiled, demanding to know what he was doing, but he simply said he would allow the constellations back in. She lunged forward, shouting for him to stop. He disappeared completely, his voice promising he would see her again. Therese seethes, calling him a bastard. Time unpauses, and Penny is on the floor, apologizing profusely to Therese. She stammers that she broke the teacup but will clean it up immediately. Therese looks down, a single tear escaping her eye. She thinks to herself that while she doesn't know what Oswald wants, one thing is now clear. She glances down the hall toward her father, Duke Raoul. Her hair sways as she turns, her eyes wide with determination. She inwardly vows that if there is a way to get rid of Oswald, she will find it, but her thoughts are cut off when the Duke, having just left the dining room, sees her collapse. He rushes toward her fallen form. Later, sunlight streams into a lavish bedroom. The Duke asks Donovan how Therese is doing. Donovan, clasping his hands, reassures the Duke that there is no need to worry. He explains that she simply fainted from dizziness. The Duke thanks him but then questions why Therese is living in such an isolated room. He points out that despite many empty rooms, she is staying in a rarely used corridor. Donovan lowers his head and apologizes. He explains that Lady Therese herself insisted on having this room, which puzzles the Duke. The Duke wonders aloud if he has truly been that indifferent toward her. Donovan quickly denies this, insisting the Duke always went out of his way for her. The Duke replies that he never doubted himself before. But when he looked into her eyes earlier that day, he felt his heart sinking. He recalls her words as she left the table, asking for his permission to leave as her only birthday present. He admits he first thought it was just a new manipulation, as Therese always did whatever it took to get her way. But this time, he says, it felt completely different, and Donovan reminds him that Lady Therese is 22 now. The Duke clenches his fist. He remembers a vision of a young, happy Therese calling for her father. He looks at his daughter, now asleep in the bed. He repeats softly that she is already 22. Therese wakes up to a 1,000 coin donation from Catharsishalik, who notes she fainted at the perfect time and that the universe must be helping her. She sits up, wondering why everyone is being so loud and if something happened while she was asleep. Donates 1,000 coins, asking if this is all part of her scheme to make Raoul play into her hands. She asks what they are talking about, but the chat floods with LOL and YEP, and she realizes they won't tell her. 3 maids enter, one asking Lady Therese if she is feeling better. Therese recognizes them as her maids. She says she is fine and asks for their help in dressing, which they eagerly agree to. A knock at the door interrupts them, and Therese wonders who it could be at this hour. She calls for them to come in. A clamor is heard from outside the door. Men burst in carrying new furniture, announcing its arrival. Therese is completely bewildered, asking what is going on. A servant asks for permission to leave the door open as they replace all the furniture, but Therese interrupts, saying there must be a mistake. She insists she didn't order any furniture, but the servant explains His Grace the Duke ordered it, saying the old furniture didn't suit her status. Therese thinks that it isn't her money being spent, and while weird, it's not a bad thing. She accepts the change, assuming it's just a one-time event. A maid then informs her that once she is dressed, she is to go to the garden because His Grace has something to give her. In the garden, Donovan stands before a brand new carriage, announcing it as a birthday present from His Grace. Therese stares in shock at the magnificent carriage. She asks if this is really her birthday present, and Donovan confirms it is. She thinks to herself that she already received a blank check, so a carriage on top of that is far too much. Donovan, however, states that the Duke does not think so. He clarifies that both the blank check and the carriage are her birthday presents, but Therese feels something is off. Donovan reiterates that these are, indeed, her presents. Someone steps onto the path. The Duke arrives with Duchess Roseanne and Joseph, asking Therese if she is feeling better. She replies that she feels fine and he nods, pleased. Therese inwardly reasons that the Duke she created would never be this thoughtful, concluding this must be a reward for helping him find Libby faster, as he asks her if she likes the carriage she previously wanted. If that's the case, she decides. She curtsies, smiling, and says she likes it very much, thanking her father. She thinks to herself that this outcome is not a bad thing. She then notices her stepbrother, Joseph. He is blushing and staring at the carriage with interest, and she muses that he's at the age to be interested in such things. She invites Joseph to look at the carriage with her, which makes him flinch. She coaxes him, noting he's never seen one like this before. He looks at the carriage in awe. He begins to ramble, noting the interior's deceptive simplicity and the advanced techniques required to make it. Therese smiles, listening as he explains the heat-resistant materials and how its simple look is actually very expensive. He continues, explaining the lighter design makes it safer and reduces wear on the wheels, before suddenly cutting himself off. Therese flushes, realizing she's the one who was rambling and slipped up. A donation from joking about classic STEM major behavior, which Therese inwardly denies. Joseph looks at her, wide-eyed, and asks how she knows all of that. He stares at her in genuine surprise. Therese looks away with a knowing expression. She glances over at Libby, who is standing nearby. She turns back to Joseph and states that of course she knows all about it. She explains that this carriage was originally meant for the beloved Libby, and she knows every detail because she poured her heart and soul into designing it.